Right now, somewhere on a mountain in eastern Turkey, the snow is several stories deep. Beneath it, according to millions of people across centuries, is a wooden ship. A ship large enough to carry 2 of every animal on Earth. A ship that supposedly saved the entire living world from a flood that covered every mountain on the planet. And no one has found it. Not for a lack of trying.
Most people assume we haven't found Noah's Ark because it never existed, or because the story is simply mythology, ancient people making sense of a flood they didn't understand. That's a reasonable assumption, but it doesn't explain the expeditions, dozens of them, funded by universities, by governments, by private millionaires, by a former US astronaut, by satellite imaging agencies with technology that can read a license plate from orbit, all looking, all returning without the thing they went for. And the real answer to why, the actual reason, is far stranger than either side of this debate wants to admit.
Start with what we know. The book of Genesis describes an ark built from gopher wood, 300 cubits long, 50 wide, 30 tall. A cubit is roughly 18 inches, which makes the ark approximately 137 meters, about the length of a city block, longer than a football field. After the flood, the text says it came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Ararat is a real place. It sits on the border of Turkey and Armenia. Its peak reaches 5,137 meters. It is permanently snow-capped. It is glaciated. It is one of the more geologically active regions on Earth. That detail, a specific real mountain, is why people keep going. The story doesn't say it landed somewhere vague, it names the place. And named places can be searched.
The first recorded attempt to find it was in the 3rd century. A Babylonian historian named Berossus wrote that the remains of the ship were still there, and that locals scraped pitch from its wood to use as amulets. In the 4th century, a bishop named Epiphanius said the same. Marco Polo claimed he could see it from a distance. He didn't climb up to check. In 1876, a British statesman named James Bryce climbed Ararat alone. Near the summit, at roughly 4,000 meters, he found a piece of hand-hewn timber, 4 feet long. He was convinced it came from the ark. He brought it back. It was never confirmed as anything other than old wood. This is a pattern. It repeats across nearly every expedition. Someone finds something, it looks promising, then it isn't.
In 1955, a French explorer named Fernand Navarre climbed Ararat and returned with wood fragments from beneath a glacier. He said they came from a hand-tooled beam, that the wood was black, that it was buried under ice and rock at nearly 4,000 meters elevation. The discovery made international headlines. Scientists carbon-dated the fragments. The results came back to somewhere between 500 and 1,400 years old, medieval, not ancient, not close to the dates the story requires. Navarre disputed the results. He went back in 1969 with an American expedition. They found more wood, dated to the same general period, still not ancient enough. But here is where it gets strange. Navarre was not a fraud. He was a careful man. The wood was genuinely old. It was genuinely at high elevation. It was genuinely hand-worked. So what was it? Nobody knows. That answer, nobody knows, appears more often in the Ararat record than most people realize.
In 1949, a US Air Force reconnaissance flight photographed something on Ararat's northwest plateau. A large, dark, boat-shaped object partially exposed through the ice. The photographs were classified. They were eventually released in the 1990s under FOIA requests. Researchers called the site the Ararat Anomaly. It measured approximately 310 feet, close to the biblical dimensions. NASA analyzed it, the Pentagon analyzed it, satellite imaging agencies spent years on it. Their conclusion? Probably a rock formation, possibly a ridge of dark basalt exposed by glacial retreat. Probably. That word is doing a lot of work.
In 2010, a team of evangelical researchers from Hong Kong announced they had found wooden chambers inside Ararat. They released photographs, video footage, wood samples. They said the structure was 70% intact. The scientific community was skeptical immediately. Several archaeologists noted the team had not published through peer review. Others pointed out that one of the key local guides involved had previously been exposed staging religious relics for money. The claim collapsed within months. But here is the part that matters. The footage was real, the wood was real, the structure was real. What it was, genuinely unclear. The same answer every time.
Now, go deeper, because there is a geological problem with the Ark story that most people have never heard. Not a religious problem, a physical one. If a global flood of the scale described in Genesis actually occurred, water covering every mountain, including Everest, at 8,849 meters, the volume of water required would be approximately 4.5 billion cubic kilometers. That is roughly 3 times the total volume of all water on Earth right now.
including every ocean, every glacier, every underground aquifer. Where did it come from? Where did it go? The Bible says God caused the fountains of the deep to open and the windows of heaven to pour. Flood geologists, scientists who take the Genesis account literally, argue that the flood was accompanied by catastrophic geological restructuring, that mountains rose and oceans deepened after the water receded, creating the modern topography. They call it catastrophic plate tectonics. It is not accepted by mainstream geology, but it is not nothing. It is a serious attempt to reconcile observation with belief, and the debate is more technical than most people on either side bother to understand.
There is another problem. The Ark, if it existed, would be made of organic material, wood. Wood does not survive well. Even under ideal conditions, dry, cold, low oxygen, wood degrades over millennia. The oldest intact wooden structure known to archaeology is roughly 10,000 years old and was found preserved in a peat bog. Ararat is not a peat bog. It is a glacier, a geologically active one, moving, grinding, splitting the rock beneath it. If a wooden ship had been there for 4,000 to 5,000 years, the mountain itself may have already destroyed it, not hidden it, consumed it. Glaciers do not preserve things, they process them. And yet, the mountain keeps giving back fragments, old wood, hand-worked, from altitudes where no one builds.
Here is what the search for Noah's Ark actually is. It is not primarily a scientific endeavor. It is not primarily a religious one either. It is something older than both. It is the human need to prove that the past happened, that the stories are real, that somewhere in the physical world something survives as evidence that meaning existed. The Ark represents the idea that someone once was warned in time, that the world ended and something was saved, that survival was deliberate, not random. If you can find the ship, you can find the proof that survival was planned, that someone was chosen, that the catastrophe had a reason. That is a very different thing from archaeology. That is the search for reassurance.
And this is where the question changes shape, because maybe the reason we haven't found it is not that it isn't there, and not simply that it never existed. Maybe the reason is that some things exist most completely in the act of searching for them. Every expedition to Ararat carries something up the mountain that no instrument can measure. The desire for the past to have meant something, the need for catastrophe to have had a purpose, the hope that when everything was lost, someone saved what mattered. That hope has driven human beings up a dangerous glaciated volcano in eastern Turkey for 17 centuries. Not one of them found the ship, but none of them came back unchanged either.
There is a final thing worth knowing. In the ancient Near East, flood narratives existed long before Genesis. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written on clay tablets at least 1,000 years before the biblical account, describes a man named Utnapishtim. He is warned of a flood by a god. He builds a ship. He loads animals onto it. The flood comes. The ship lands on a mountain. The mountain is called Nisir. Researchers have never agreed on where Nisir is. No one is looking for it. The same story, different name, no search parties, which raises a question that has no clean answer. Is the Ark being searched for because it is uniquely true, or because it is embedded in a tradition that taught an entire civilization to treat it as literally true? Both things can be facts simultaneously. Truth and belief are not always the same territory, but the search lives in the overlap between them. So why haven't we found Noah's Ark? Because the mountain may have already destroyed it. Because the wood, if it was ever there, is probably fragments in glacial sediment now, unrecognizable. Because every fragment we do find refuses to date to the right century. Because the geological conditions required for the flood don't match the physical record, at least not simply. Because the organizations with the best search technology keep returning with the same answer, probably a rock formation, probably. But also, because some searches are not really about finding, they are about asking. And the asking, the act of climbing the glacier, of funding the expedition, of staring at satellite imagery at 2 a.m. trying to find the shape of a hull in the snow, that asking is its own kind of meaning. 17 centuries of expeditions, no Ark, but something kept them going back. Maybe the ship isn't buried in the ice, maybe it's in the going back.
The mountain is there right now, snow several stories deep. Whatever is beneath it, rock, ice, ancient wood, nothing at all, is sitting in the cold, quiet, waiting to be found, or waiting for us to finally stop looking.